Grandmother, I see you setting in the west. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred and you are looking at me. Grandmother, I see you setting in the north. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred and you are looking at me. Grandmother, I see you setting in the sky. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred and you are looking at us. Grandmother, I see you setting in the earth. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred and you are looking at us. Grandmother, I see you setting in our hearts. I pray to you, pray to you. You are sacred and you are looking at us. Thank you.
Oh. And now Crystal is asking if we can open with a prayer. If you'll just keep that really amazing energy that she just called to join us in your hearts and sitting with you. Oh, Grandmother, Father God, I give great thanks for you today, for this circle of open-hearted people that have gathered here so that we can share and learn from one another. I give great thanks. For the breath that I took in this morning and that all took in this morning, that we share and that has been shared since the original times, I give thanks. For this temple we call a body, that you can help us learn how to clear and to transform and transmute so we can become vehicles in service to your work on this earth. I give great thanks. For the next generation that's joined us today, and for those that are flying around and hearing and listening to all that will be said, I give great thanks. For the ancestors and the old ones that came before us, for that grandmother that dreamed us all into being and that is still dreaming us now, I give great thanks. For this moment in time that is so historical and so challenging, that has been prophesied for generations and generations, I give great thanks. I ask that you help us stay open in our hearts and to allow ourselves to embrace whatever may come to meet us so that we can lift it up higher and transmute it, transform it, and focus it towards world peace for all nations and all peoples. For this great creation that is living around us and in us, I give great thanks. For you opening our hearts so that we could listen and begin to dialogue with that creation once again, I give great thanks. For the way that you have taught us and the First Nations have taught us so that we can walk more gently on this earth and remember ourselves and that all is sacred, I give great thanks. I'd ask that you look in each and every heart that is gathered here today. I'd ask that you help us keep those hearts opened and help us remember that we are all connected and that what I do does affect the other. And so let me take mindfulness into my everyday practice so that I can walk gently upon this planet, that I can send images and words and actions out onto this planet that are about peace and that are peaceful in its nature. I give great thanks for the great exploration of life that you've opened in this new chapter of ours, and that we might learn from one another and that we might see that our differences are the power of the moment. Our diversity is what will weave the new moment that is laying itself down right now. For all these thoughts and much more, I give great thanks. For those that are challenged in war-torn countries, I'd ask that you touch them right now so that whether they're sleeping or walking or hungry or thirsty or war worn, that you might comfort them in this moment. And for those of us that are in safe places right now and are still drinking clean, good water, I'd ask that you touch us too so that we will remember the gifts that we hold and become more conscious with them so that we can cherish every one of those gifts and learn how to share the richness of this planet with each other. Because you've provided everything we need in this moment, Creator, that I'm very sure of. Everything we need to feed every person. I ask that you help our waters clear themselves, and that as we become more mindful and we offer our prayers to the healing waters of this planet, that they can run more smoothly and they can be shared throughout the planet. Because, Creator, I worry about those that have to walk so far just to get a pail of water to bathe in or to drink or to wash their dishes with. I ask that you help us come back to an understanding of original principles, of generosity, of spirit, of collaboration and cooperation, of the understanding that all life is sacred and that all should be shared in a moment of reciprocity. I ask that you help us reestablish this foundation so that we can grow ourselves in a different way and bring a reality here that brings peace amongst all nations and a real honoring of the planet, this Mother Earth, this beautiful star that you have in your heavens, so that we can cherish our life here instead of forgetting about it. There may be something in my heart, Creator, that should have been spoken. You know my heart better than I know myself. So you reach in right now and you take it up to yourself and tend to it if you would. There have been so many calls and emails in the last month. People are meeting their truths, and sometimes those truths are challenging, and sometimes those truths are overwhelming. Sometimes those truths are grand. Sometimes those truths are full of joy. Sometimes those truths are full of silence. Let us look in the mirror of the great self and see our truth, embrace it, integrate it, and offer it to this service of peace. This we pray, this we pray, this we pray. Aho.
Aho. Thank you, Jyoti.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're just going to flow in the moment of what comes up and what is in the heart of Jyoti to share. We had said that we would ask you anything that comes to mind on how to embody living an empowered life during these chaotic times, and how can we be of the most service at this time. And then we can just go from there and then open it up for questions if that feels good to you. And there's a way everyone can raise their hand. But if you go down to the bottom of the screen, participants, there's a way to raise your hand. And we'll if we have to get off at 4 because Jyoti has a very full schedule. So if your question doesn't get answered, just know that Spirit will answer it eventually. So does that feel good to you, Jyoti?
Absolutely.
Okay, so would you like to share on that, like how to embody living an empowered life in these chaos times, and also in a way that can be of service to others?
Well, I want to give kind of that's a question we could talk about for a long, long time. So
Yes.
I don't want to give it less attention than it needs. So I'm just going to plant maybe some of the beginning seeds of that understanding. And then maybe through our questions and our exchange and our dialogue today, we together can grow a clear understanding of that. Empowered state is really, in my world, it means that we are reaching into a memory that lives in the DNA of ourselves. And the way the old ones taught me is that those DNA were actually lesson. They were brought down. I think there are 8, but I don't quote me on that one. But they were used to be about 12 or 13. And so that's how limited we've become. And so as we're opening up in this really amazing time we're living in, we're bringing tools are being brought to us that help us cultivate ourselves, that help us heal ourselves, help us come to know ourselves in those original ways. And so the first part of this story is get to know yourself. In the Delphi Oracle, it says to know thyself is to know the universe. So we need to understand and connect with the universe that lives in us. We all came here with karmic packages, so to speak. We chose our families the way I was trained up so that we would know exactly what was going to happen in those families, because those were the lessons of karma that we needed to meet and greet first. And once we burn up that karma, then we start to move in and activate the Dharma, our soul's mission, what we really came here to do, because this is really like a school. So we come in with those lessons to transform and to reabsorb. Some of the things we come in with are spiritual boons. Some of the things that have happened in my life as my awakening process took place. My old teacher, his name is Dion Yogi. He was 116 when he passed. At least I think, because I went to 2 birthday parties for him in India when we were celebrating his 115th. So we did it twice. So I don't know how old he truly was, but he was very old. He was the oldest person I have known in my life. And he was such a blessing to me. He was a simple man, a very humble man. And when he lived in this little apartment in Ahmedabad, and there was a doctor and his wife that cared for him in his last days. And when he would sit up on his bed, because the world came to his bedroom for darshan every Thursday, lots and lots of people came. And so I went and stayed there with him for 3 months at one point of my life, and it was life-changing. And he would sit up on the bed, and when he did, you knew God had come into his form, because he's the only person I've ever met too that was totally God possessed, totally God possessed. And when God spoke out of him, things happened. One time he made a proclamation about my life, and there were some bars on his bedroom window, and these 3 doves flew in the room as he made this proclamation and flew over our heads in circles until his proclamation was finished, and then he laid down. And there were about 40 people there that day that were everybody. We were all kind of in a totally different state when that finished. And every proclamation he gave me at the time, which seemed so far out and way from where I would have ever thought my life was going to go, have all been materialized. They've all actualized themselves except for one. And so it got my attention, needless to say. So that was, I would say that as you're moving into empowerment, as you step up on the path of life, your soul's path, it's important to watch what comes to sit in front of it. You know, for a while we're seekers, they say. So Carl Jung would say we're circumambulating our wholeness until we are prepared. And then we jump into the well of our wholeness and we go into the depth of it. And that's what I would call a finder. So some that are those finders, they're the ones that sometimes, especially in the beginning of that, when something comes to challenge you, you immediately go into these habits you were in as a finder, but they don't work anymore. So you have to remind yourself that you're a finder and come back to the roots that you're living. So when they say that there is an archetype that is connected to our soul's purpose, and that archetype is what's pulling us into us as we individuate, as we go through these levels of transformation and healing. It's pulling us into us. So once you're a finder, you no longer have to seek and look. You just have to embrace what's standing in front of you. Sometimes that embrace of what's standing in front of you is exciting. Sometimes that is like, whoa, don't want to embrace that at all. There's many experience of feeling that we have as we embrace the teachings that get put in front of us on our path. One time, one woman got really upset with me and she said, just tell me what path I should be on. I said, look down, where are your feet? I said, that's your path. You're already there. You're already on your path. Now, can you have the courage to embrace that which God brings to your path and trust that what that lesson is about is necessary to the alchemical process of your wholeness? So that's the way I live my life. When you start to live that way, you start to follow the process rather than trying to acquisition something, grab something, make something part of your life to define who you are. It shifts and it changes dramatically that way. And in the original ways, the way of life of our First Nation people, it always tells us that it's important that we stay in the moment and that we follow the process. If you I call it staying with your medicine. So if I stay with my medicine, then the teaching is right there in that present moment. If I try to run ahead of my medicine, then you can bet my ego, my persona, is involved, and I will not follow the same path possibly that my soul would have sent me down. So I've confused myself, I've distracted myself, and I've interrupted something. So a lot of the work in the beginning days of this is just how to stay in the present moment. A friend of mine this last week said in our conversation, said, if you look back, then you're going to get really fearful and depressed about what's there. And if you look into the future, you're going to have a lot of anxiety about what might be waiting for you. But if you stay in the present moment, there's peaceful place there. So I found that to be true. When I catch myself getting anxious about something, she gave us a practice because the mother is who directs my feet so close to me. It's who I serve. There are many, she calls herself she of many faces, but there are many expressions of the divine. So I don't want to limit that in any way because it's most important that you connect with your divine expression. That archetype is the divine expression of wholeness. So if you can stay clear with yourself and on mark with yourself that way, and if you can't, if you have one of those moments when everything's swirling around and the fear's coming up, the anxiety's coming up, and a lot of chance for that these days because of the world situation we're in. She gave us this instruction. She said, just touch your heart at that moment and close your eyes and be peace. Be in the present moment, be peace, be joy. Know that all that fifth world principle of collaboration, cooperation, sacred life, joy, peace, they all live right here, right now. We're not seeking it. We're not looking for it. We are that peace. So that's been, we touch our hearts and we say update. So that in that moment of update, we come back to that present moment. And so you get to massage your chest a lot. And all of us throughout this global community that I get to be a part of, that I love so much, all of us are doing our updates a lot every day because it's a real important spiritual practice right now. That's how we'll stay empowered, is by staying fully in the moment. That's the way I understand it, and there's stories pop out sometimes. So I'm just gonna kind of let this one pop out because when I got this vision in 1998, and some of you that were walking when I was walking with the grandmothers may have heard this vision, but it was one of those life-changing visions. And when it came, it was a presence, really, I would say, because we were in ceremony, and the mother came in extremely, it was the first time she fully popped open all my cells, and I went through quite a big moment for myself. And she said, I'm going to give you one of my most treasured baskets. And in that basket, I'm going to put some of my most sacred jewels. Those jewels reach back to the original times. They're lines of prayer. Do not change them. Do not mix them. Protect and keep them safe and walk them through the doorway of the millennia. Hand them back to me. I have something we're going to do. Now, that was in 1998. And we were a young community. We had formed ourselves and created an intentional community in 1995 was when it came into place. I'd been working probably for about 5 years up to that time with people that then became the original members of our community. And so when we got this vision in 1998, we were very young. We were extremely innocent. We are still very naive. Although we've got 30 years now under our belt of walking this way. And we're still learning. We're still learning. So we didn't really understand this vision when she gave it to us. But within the next, because we didn't form the Grandmother's Council until 2004. So up our 14-mile logger road, these elders came to initiate us in each of the lines of prayer, and to so we would know how to take care of it, how to tend to that line of prayer, how to keep it from mixing with other things, to keep its purity, and how to honor it and to keep the line unbroken. That was a great sacred trust that we had accepted, and we took it very serious. So there were 4 lines, and when you bring a line, a traditional line like that into your family or into your community, it shakes everything like a great tree is just being shook. All the karma for that line comes forward, your seriousness. Are you really going to clear yourself so you can truly be in service to this line of prayer? And it sometimes takes 1 to 2 years to go through the great shaking. We had done that 4 times. So I was, in my resistance stage, and I was praying every day to the mother, and I was trying to negotiate with her. And I was saying, 4 is a good number. It's a nice number for the earth. It means it's grounded. All the directions are cared for. I gave all really good excuses for why that 5th one would be so difficult. Now, during this time that this was going on, we have a community, a really large community that's 18 years old, that's just outside of Prague in a little town called Lokov. And so and we have community in Switzerland. So I was in Europe, and I'd been working with our community in Switzerland. I was on my way to Prague, and I usually take the train because I really like the train. Read my book, have a cup of coffee, I like the train. I like to watch the nature passing by. But this day, somebody had bought me a ticket to fly me to Prague. And I was going to be running a ceremony over there. So all of my sacred dress and jewelry and instruments, they were all in this suitcase. Now, I'll say, too, that when I lived in Switzerland, because I went to the Jung Institute there, I stayed there for 3 years and studied. And what I missed when I was there, because I was a woman out of Texas, I missed pickup trucks and Black Nation. They just, neither one are there in Switzerland. So I say that because when I came around the corner to come up to the gate where I was supposed to be boarding for Prague, I thought, there was this entire room of Black Nation. So I was like, oh my goodness. And then there was this sign that said Gabon, Africa. And so I went up to the lady, and I said, I'm so sorry, but something's happened. They've got me going to Gabon. I'm going to Prague, and I need my suitcase. She said, just come, we'll make sure you get it. And I knew I wasn't going to get my suitcase. And sure enough, they sent my suitcase to Gabon, Africa, where I would be going a few years later. And it would sit in this little airport where chickens flew through, and things that are left there they disappear quickly. But my sacred fans, like I said, all of my sacred objects that I was about to use in ceremony went to Gabon, Africa. And a few months later, it came back to me in its entirety. So I tell you this story because when I started negotiating with the mother, and she lets me kind of wiggle around and meet my resistance that way. And then all of a sudden she'll just, she has this voice that once she puts on her serious voice, usually she says, daughter. And then I know, oh, okay, because, and then I just go into what she tells me to do. You know, she's very patient with my little self. So it was in one of those moments when she said to me, daughter, it's time for you to go to Africa. Your sacred fan touched the ground there first, and your feet will stand there next. So then I knew fifth line of prayer was coming in. Um, so I give this as an example about how to follow, you know, how to follow your medicine, what your soul's song is all about. And that you will certainly meet resistance from your ego and your personality and maybe your family and friends. You really have to stay focused on that. It also has helped me to have elders, people that have walked this walk before and know the walk, so that when I was getting into places that were confusing, or I was fearful that my ego was reaching some place that it shouldn't, I could always sit with my elder and they would, I always had some real serious elders, so I knew that they would keep me straight. They would keep me on that path where I could continue to be of service. So for me, that's how the empowerment process has happened. It doesn't happen all at once. They say with enlightenment, you know, that there's like drops that fall in. As you're doing each of these works, there's another drop that falls in. And then just like a crystal, that last drop falls in, and bing, 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 your self-realization happens. And they say when that goes on that it's the most unselfish act a person can do, because 7 generations before you and 7 generations after you receive the healing of that full awakening. So that is kind of the core of your question for me. I know that right now the biggest challenge of all is what's happening on the planet politically, what's happening on the planet through what is people are calling climate change. One of my friends said we should start languaging that different and say healthy climate. So maybe the two sides would come together. I think we're looking right now for language and ways to dialogue with each other so that we can sit at the same table. And instead of being in competition with each other for what's the right truth or what's the only truth, that we can see the diversity of truth and begin to see what's required for us to move into whole systems and to attend to our whole system in a way that brings sustainability for those little ones, like this little one, Luca, who's joined us today. So I guess it was last year, I run the Unity concert, or I help to organize, that's a much better way to say it, the Unity concert, because it runs itself. And when we laid it down, the first time we laid it down as an instrument, so it would help to bring a unification to the very large Great Sioux Nation tribes, because there are 17 of them in several states. There are 9 in South Dakota itself. And I was been working for the last decade with the Pahasapa Unity Alliance. We've been working to strive towards getting the sacred site of the Black Hills back in the hands of the Great Sioux Nation so that they can care for them and they can pray and activate the sacred sites again. And with that in mind, we were directed by Spirit to open up a Unity concert so we could go through music and sound to bring this unification about, so we could honor traditional ways of the Great Sioux Nation, and so we could create a platform to speak about how important and significant our sacred sites are right now on the planet itself. She needs those sacred sites reactivated in order to do what she can to help us move in a less aggressive way possibly than the one that's being charted right now for us. So after we laid it down the first time, the elders came and said, Jyoti, when you lay something sacred like this down, you need to do it 4 times. So I took another deep breath because it wasn't an easy thing to land. And now we are going into our 4th year of that commitment this year. And it's been quite remarkable. We were there last year, which was the 3rd year. And if any of you have sweat before, that 3rd round in the sweat is called the healing round. And that's when a lot of stuff gets cooked up and flies around, and when healing is prominent. So it got cooked up. We learned about 100-year feuds that have been going on between different factions and tribal sites. We learned a lot. She gave us instructions. She said, you're walking through the valley of the smoky mirror. She said, there are all these little smoky mirrors. And if you're in a smoky mirror, then all you can see is the reality that that particular smoky mirror cooks up. You can't see anything else, and that's your whole view. You don't even know that there are other smoky mirrors over here, and sometimes they even bump into each other, but we don't even realize they have. And if you kind of look around at our global situation right now, you can see the smoky mirrors. You can see the different smoky mirrors that are getting much more prominent in their visibility. She said, what's most important as you walk through the valley of smoky mirrors is to walk through the valley and hold the mirror where only God's reflection can be seen. And so that's what we did last year. We walked through, we heard things, we didn't get pulled into the smoky mirrors because it's very seductive to get connected with a smoky mirror. And then when you do it, it will pull you right in, and then you find a way back out, right? So we walked through, and we just kept keeping our hearts open. We just kept holding thoughts of peace and unity amongst all nations. And we got through in a spectacular way. In fact, what transpired was Standing Rock took place, and we were able to we brought about, I don't know, 30 or 40 different artists, most of them native artists that we were able to, and they drove from all different parts of the country, and some flew in. And so we were able to fund that. So once they got there, they only had to drive 3 hours to go and offer their prayers with Standing Rock. We also gathered up donations of food and blankets and sleeping bags and all kinds of things to send up there to help them hold a good space for themselves, because the water protectors were giving voice to something that, as they will say now, is a whole lot more than just about our water. It certainly is about our water. That water element is leading things for us, is showing us how we can get through this valley of the smoking mirrors and come back to those original principles that live in each and every single one of us. So with all of that said, I think that was the great practice that was given to us a year ago, and then Trump was elected, and that valley got very live and lively. So we've been walking with that practice and the update to help us stay in the moment and to help us not get distracted from what we really truly came here to do. And for me, that's what this moment of empowerment looks like. So did I answer that question?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yes. And so maybe there's questions that those that are with us today would like to ask, please do. And I would like to hear from you. Maybe you've been given instruction, inspiration about this question of empowerment.
Yeah. If you raise your hand, I can unmute you. Even if you can do this too. If anybody has a question. No question?
Everybody's quiet. Well, I will also say that the earth herself is this amazing intelligence. She's amazing. When you get the covers pulled off of your eyes and your heart's eyes, then you can really dialogue with creation. You can have this relationship with Creator through creation. That's so, my life was so flat before that relationship flowered and opened itself. And it's so rich now, even in the moments that are so challenging and on personal levels. I can just go sit outside and speak to creation, and she'll speak back. She'll love me unconditionally. She'll give me simple sometimes but profound words of guidance that will help me know how to deal with the challenge that maybe took me to the back porch to sit and talk to her. And so I just really want to encourage people to really take a moment and start to spend more time with her. Take time with her waters to pray. The prayer that you were singing, it's a good one to start every day with, and to take a glass of water and go meet the morning sun. Bring your family and say a prayer to that morning, that say, good morning, thank you for bringing me one more day in this creation. I give thanks for it, and say whatever your heart wants to say to that, and really honor that first dawn of a new day. And then when you finish your prayer, you pour 4 times a little water on the earth, so she gets to drink first. And then you and your family, or who's ever standing with you as you greeted this new day, you each take a blessing from that water as well. And I'll tell you that if you can do that for one simple practice alone, it will really change the way the day unfolds for you. It will really alter that for you. So I just encourage you to make that kind of relationship and that connection. Going into ritual and ceremony, I didn't go seeking some of these traditional ceremonies that I now walk with. They came and found me, and many times I had resistance to them. I had very much respect for them, but they came and they found me, and it was through those rituals that I really deepened and rooted in a new way of life. One that was very different than what the Western culture had laid out for me. It was very, very different. It helped me learn how to speak differently with my words, so that I could, because in the West we're very wordy. We're like chatty birds. We chirp a lot. So it helped me to sit and really catch the essence of what I wanted to say in my words, and to say it that way. It helped me speak from my heart. Many people that I brought into Sweat Lodge, they would come out later and say, the first time I learned how to pray was in those lodges, because then I wasn't like just talking to God out of my head. I was speaking to God out of my heart. I didn't have a pre-planned prayer. I didn't always just go and ask God to do something for me. I had a conversation with God, a dialogue with God. I had a relationship with God. And so I really want to encourage people to sit in some of these ways, so that you can come back to that level of understanding, that level of wisdom, and that level of intelligence that lives in us and all around us and right through us. So just want to mention that much.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think, Rika, do you still have a question? Okay, I'm going to unmute you. Okay, go ahead. We can't hear you. You could type it in the chat box if you want.
Are you Can you hear me now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. It's more of a reflection that has been in my mind lately, and it might fit in here. When Jyoti spoke about the state of things, and politically in particular, not so many months ago, I have come across this Hawaiian prayer of forgiveness and healing, Ho'oponopono. Some of you may know it.
Yes.
And it talks about 100% responsibility, that whatever goes on in the world is to some even minute amount our responsibility as well. And so when I see these people that I cannot particularly like, say our politicians, I have come to see that they are our societal shadow side. Mm-hmm. And that we don't need to, and I think we should not offer a violent opposition in any way, but a healing and forgiving energy towards this, just as we have to deal with our inner shadow, which, you know, I'm still working on and trying to figure out. We also have to deal with our community shadows and our societal shadows. And so I'm sort of putting that forward almost as an idea. And I wondered if that matches and how we can maybe more effectively heal our societal shadow, I guess, because we need to. It's a unity thing, really. We are all in this one place of earth, and we need to heal and forgive. So that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for your wisdom.
Oh,
I completely agree with you. You know, what
you.
the indigenous elders would say is that we are leaving the fourth world, which was a world that was going to teach us about separation. And we're just moving towards the fifth world, which will bring 5,000 years of a golden age, when the sense of being and unity become fully present here now. So we're the culture, we're the people that are starting to move towards that understanding of self, huh? And so it's a very rich time. And my Jungian friends would say that when the shadow is visible, makes itself visible, that's when transformation is at hand. And so actually this moment that we're in is actually a moment of celebration. Now people would say, you've lost your mind, Jyoti, but maybe I have. Maybe that's what we have to do, is lose our minds in order to move in our hearts, huh? But what I understand and how I hold it is that our global shadow, the shadow of power and greed, has made itself very visible. And what's happening in the transformational flow, because I'm on a lot of calls and I'm very involved in a lot of global movements. And so I get, and very many of those are indigenous movements of one sort or another. So what I'm seeing take place is, as this happens, it's a catalyst. It's becoming a catalyst for this other wellspring of energy that's coming up very strong. Like across the United States, we haven't had ever in demonstrations like we're having, these peaceful demonstrations that are coming to the senators' home offices and bringing them. I saw one bring all these balloons with all the people in each balloon that were going to lose healthcare if they didn't pay attention, you know. So, and California right now has just gotten through the House this one pay healthcare bill, which means everybody will have healthcare. Doesn't matter what your economy is, it doesn't matter what your color of your skin is, doesn't matter whether you're young or old. Everybody, I believe, needs to have right to healthcare, right to clean water, right to healthcare. Those have to be at the front of the pole of hope and expectation. So that's what's happening. I also just heard on the news that China, which is another shadow piece that we've been working with for many years, it's now going into shared economy. Who would think? It's a huge nation it's opened its doors to shared economy. So there are these if we watch the whole system picture, we will have a better understanding of what's truly happening in this moment. And of course, as we hold that whole system picture, then we also have to be the point in our individual nature and understand the import of that. So if there's something outside in the worldview that we're seeing that really triggers us, Kubler-Ross said, if anything triggers you for more than 10 seconds, you have unfinished homework there. So our practice is anytime we get triggered, we go to see where does Donald Trump live in me? Where does my abuse of power live in me? Where does my greed, where does the greed live in me? Because I can't make peace. I can't fight for peace. The only way I will realize peace is to be peace. And so this outer world, as you say, in your wisdom, this outer world is a reflection of what we all need to tend to if we want to really be that peace. So yeah, it's a very auspicious moment, isn't it? A very auspicious moment. And these kind of dialogues are happening more and more and more. And people are coming back to an understanding of themselves and their hearts. And, that's the main reason. What fuels my walk are my grandchildren. When I was a girl, I could drink out of streams. I couldn't believe that there would be, if anybody had said we were going to bottle water and we'd have to pay for it, it was so far from my understanding. So that's where we've come, but we can return because nature herself, I'm not worried about Mother Earth surviving this situation. I think we as human beings are on the extinct list. We've got to wake up and pay attention to that. The Yupik up north in the cold country of Alaska, one of my grandmothers up there, Grandmother Rita Blumenstein, she tells a story that what we've been doing is really learning about our human nature, or that animal nature of ourselves. So we've been learning how to survive. But as we leave this understanding in these bottom three chakras and we move into this fourth chakra of the heart, then we start an ascension process. And she says that's when we, for the first time, will really begin to actualize our human beingness. And she says the way their teachings go is that when that happens, the blackbirds turn white. And they're already starting to do it. It's just like our white buffalo that was prophesied for generations and generations. And then a few years ago, the first white buffalo calf came, which sent a ripple across all the nations, because that was prophecy saying we were here, we were at this moment where we were going to move out of this world of separation. So at least that's, I want to just say that's what you provoked and inspired in me in response to what you've shared. So thank you so very much for your share.
Okay, so we have about 8 minutes left. Is maybe time for one more question? You want to do this or raise your hand? Or we could start closing.
Oh, I see a hand.
All right, Savannah, there you go. You're unmuted. Oh, we can't hear you.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you.
If I unmute, it'll work better.
Oh, there you are. Well, see, now in this very moment, we're here to witness you have a voice.
I want to thank you both very much for this call. We need many more of these dialogues. I'm on several. I wish there were more where people could connect. I found your talk on the original 11 days call. One thing really, I thank you for sharing that we're in this for about 8 more years. The elders say, part of me went, 8 more years is not very long against eternity, but I realize I have to be patient because inside what I see to so many people in the world suffering, my heart is crying. And yeah, constantly have to be patient, 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 patient. So I thank you for listening to how I feel at this time with that awareness. My question is, would you like a copy of Walk Like, Be Like a Tree?
Sure.
I'll send it to you, care of the 13 grandmothers.
No, the grandmothers have been individuated. So now I'm working with a new project called The Fountain. But you can send it, if you send it, get with Crystal, she would be able to tell you how to do that.
Oh, all right, all right. I thought you might like it. You enjoyed it when I read it that one day.
Yeah. And thank you for your thoughts, because absolutely, you know, when I just went through some initiations with the 4 Nations of Colombia, which is what you're referring to. And they say we have 8 years for us to land in that beginning spot. So the end dies into the beginning, and the beginning will be those individuals and initiatives and nations that have begun to operate on those original principles. Now, you know, some say it takes 500 years for a new archetype to fully embody itself here. So we probably in our lifetime may not see the results of all this. So what is going to call for us is a selfless action. It means that we're able to let go of our need for outcome and stay in the present moment, so the quality of what we're landing here can be as firmly planted as possible. That will certainly change how creation unfolds this. But she's got a plan, and she will unfold this. I think the thing to remember is, if we don't wake up, if we still hold on to our sleeping ways, then she'll have to take some dramatic action in order to start to clean herself so she can continue the walk of evolution for the earth herself. So I think that's, you know, in my worldview, and like I said, we sit in circle and there are many, many views on this same thing. So it's not about wanting to put something out that is the way. It is one way of looking at and understanding. So what's amazing about it is those that are waking up, this group is growing in its numbers by leaps and bounds. And the people that are walking in these ways are amazing, beautiful beings. I feel so humbled to be walking with friends just like yourself that have opened their hearts and had a commitment to keep them that way, have allowed themselves to put down the energy of judgment and guilt and shame, and have opened to the possibility of completely cooperating, collaborating, and sharing the individuation of the individuated treasures that come out of such a walk, where we can let, you know, in any healing realm, they say, all of my healers, all the people I've worked with all these years, have said to me, the one main thing to remember is, if you're going to go for a healing, then go into it with no expectation for outcome. So we have to let go of our expectations. And because when we do, then our ego is driving something still. It's still wanting something. It's making an attachment for something. And when those attachments come, then we start to fight each other for what's right again. So come back to that place of non-attachment and no need for outcome. And we'll all meet in the place of service and love, because love is the essence behind it all. And it's the strongest medicine of it all. And there is no fear in me that will do anything that would harm the presence of love. So that's a good place for maybe us to close today, huh?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jyoti. And thank you for everyone who showed up today.
Thank you all. I'll meet you in your dreams, and we'll keep on walking.